We have the clients in Europe, we have the clients in Middle East, and the most part customer is in South America for us. We are working with more than 15 clients on CAMO. So imagine it's minimum 15 audits per year.
It's the passion for the aviation. It's the first thing actually which make us smile while we're coming to work.
We need to have some guys who is responsible for engines, for the structure, for the avionic parts, and for the other aspects. And just to have it for 1-2 aircraft, it's not beneficial at all.
And this predictive maintenance using the help of AI, it constantly live analyzes all the parameters being transmitted to these company servers.
Still, there are a lot of airlines which are using quite old-fashioned methods for example, calculating all flight hours and flight cycles. Just pilots writing down by the pen in the aircraft logbook how many hours and cycles,
One of the unique aspects of, our discussion today is where we're having this conversation and discussion, right? We're having it right in the middle of a, aircraft hangar. And this follows one of your colleagues who was actually here for a previous episode, and we're speaking about training, but obviously today we're going to be talking about CAMO, right? And the aspects of CAMO and what CAMO is. But before we dive into all of that, right? When you look at aviation as an industry and, the way people experience it, whether it's direct, indirect, whether directly as a pilot, an engineer or office staff, or indirectly as a, passenger who's traveling, one common undertone, let's say, that people say is that when you get into aviation, you either love it or you don't love it, right? There's like this bug that when you're in the industry, sometimes and most often than not, you get into the industry and you love it. You're there for decades and it's like the only industry that you can be a part of. Some people leave it and then they come back again. Let's start there, right? What's the aviation bug? How did the aviation bug bite you to be in the industry today? Ruslan, let's go with you.
Yeah, for me, probably the story is quite simple. I graduated from aerospace university and there were just quite a few paths for me where to go. And that's why I appeared almost 15 years ago. I appeared in a small airline in Ukraine. It was Dnipro Airlines, and I started to work as a flight data monitoring engineer. So actually it was quite interesting work for me. Usually people hear about the black boxes when something happened with the airplane, but not everyone probably knows that this monitoring is happening almost every day on every flight and so. So what we did, we analyzed flight data recorders, cockpit voice recorders, listened to a lot of conversations of the pilots. It's quite interesting, but actually not, I would say, nothing interesting there. And so that's why.
Which is quite interesting because when you think of black boxes, right? It's a topic that only ever comes up when there's something significant that has happened that requires you to actually look at it. You never hear about it as an it's a daily thing or it's a routine check. Well, I guess most people, they don't have the ability or the possibility to hear about that unless you're involved with it, which is quite interesting. Victor, for you, do you have something similar that's along those lines?
My story is a bit different because, I needed to choose the university of almost self-in-front of choice, whether I will be a heart surgeon or aviation engineer. So, but today you see me here.
Okay, now that's also another unique aspect. Heart surgeon, aviation engineer. What made you decide aviation engineer?
Both of these, let's say it's professions, they are kind of supremacy in terms of how difficult it is, both in the study and further while we start working, because I always was interested in, let's say, in the medical things, and as well I was also very interested in technical supremacy. And the most difficult technical thing at the moment I was choosing the university, that was with airplanes, of course. So that was, like a final aspect why I chose it.
Okay, quite interesting there, just that transition from one technically complex industry, you could say, to another technically complex industry, and I'm referring to CAMO, which is what we're going to be discussing today, right? Now, CAMO, as an abbreviation, it's Continuous Airworthiness Management Organization. It's quite a mouthful, right? When you just say camo on its own, some people might think, okay, is that camo as in the camouflage that people might wear? But no, it's a completely, separate thing. But before we dive deep into that, give us an introduction of what you do today on a daily basis, quarterly basis, and its relation to camo. So, Ruslan, let's go with you.
My role is more related to commercial part of our organization, project management, commercial. So we are, with my team, we are tracking the project flow just to be sure that the customer is fully satisfied about the services, what we are doing, and about the level of them, about the resources, and so on. We are investigating new possibilities for us, where to extend our support to the customer, where we can be better, what we can provide additionally to the customer, and so on. So being just all the time between the engineers and the customers, and of course exploring new markets, new opportunities for us. So this is actually my primary goal at my work in CAMO of FL Technics.
And Victor, I know your position as the head of CAMO, right? You're involved a lot with the operations, like on the ground work. Describe that for us right now.
Yeah, so technically, my role is to ensure all the processes and workflows are properly arranged. So again, the oversight of the team of the qualified engineers, making sure we're in line with the regulations, with the requirements, all the customers' requests are properly maintained, answered in timely manner. So that's what I'm trying to arrange.
Okay. So now we know what you both do, right? On a technically high level, let's say it that way. I want us to break it down just, for the benefit of the people watching today, those who don't know what CAMO is, or those who are not involved in aviation, just so they understand what CAMO is. Now, to my understanding, CAMO, Continuing Airworthiness, Management Organization, where the aircraft that are flown today on a daily basis, 50,000 flights a day or 100,000 flights per day, happening all over the world, there is a certain level of airworthiness or monitoring that needs to be done to make sure that all those different flights across different industries, cargo, passenger, that everything is airworthy, right? And I think if I was to break it down as a, bystander or like a layman, right, to a simple terms, like if I'm driving my car, or I'm driving a bus to work every day, right, it needs to be airworthy. I want to know that, the vehicle I'm going to be in is going to be in the sense of a car, roadworthy, right? You don't want to get into a vehicle that's not right. So how would you describe what CAMO is, in a layman's term? How would you describe that?
Well, actually, to bring it simple, the answer lays within the abbreviation itself. So CAMO stands for Continuing Airworthiness Management Organization. So the organization which is responsible for continuously keeping the aircraft in airworthy state during its operational life. It still may sound somehow complicated, so let me draw a parallel here. You used a very good example with a car. So majority of us own a car, and to make it safe, to make it to be able to safely drive it on the roads, you need to perform certain maintenance tasks. You need to run bi-yearly checks just to make sure that it's compliant with the emission requirements. All of the necessary parts are replaced, your tires not wear, your brake pads are replaced, filters, etc. So taking a regular car as example, you may have 5 to 10 tasks on a yearly basis which should be done maintenance-wise. Comparing to the aircraft in the aviation, let's take a standard narrow-body airliner as example. Its aircraft maintenance program contains up to 2,000 tasks, which should be complied with. So CAMO role here is to make sure all these tasks are properly planned, accomplished, and recorded. So that's what CAMO do.
Which is quite a significant parallel, right? Where you've just said, look, for a car, you've got maybe 10, 20 tasks that need to be done. Whereas in comparison to an aircraft, I mean, this is a large moving, moving item or moving mechanical structure, multiple different systems, going on, all working together to keep it, compliant and to keep it functional. Ruslan, how would you describe that, right? And we got the parallel that is about 2,000 tasks, right? How would you describe that from your perspective?
Yeah, that's quite a good example which Victor provided with a car. So definitely what I can add from myself that, yeah, we're sitting now in the hangar, and in this parallel, the hangar is just like a car service, yeah? For them, it's not so important how often you're coming to them, yeah? For the car service, it's not so much importance either you're bringing to change the oil each 3 months or each 5 years. They can just only recommend it. But you act as a CAMO for your car, I would say like this. So this is you who decides how often you should come there, how often you have to perform those maintenance tasks. So this is actually what we are doing here. So if you will ask me to show you what our colleagues actually doing, so you will just see the people actually sitting and planning all the maintenance tasks in front of their computers. So we are not performing any tasks in the hangars, but just using electronical methods in order to comply with CAMO requirements.
Which is quite an interesting aspect there, because you're mentioning that you're not directly involved in the actual tasks, but rather you're involved in the, let's say, making sure that the aircraft that needs to be airworthy follows the routine of maintenance checks or maintenance tasks that need to be, that it needs to go through at a certain time interval. I mean, is that the case? And I'm going to pass this on to Victor, because you're dealing with it, on an operations basis as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, actually that's the case, because we're obliged to track all the maintenance. So for that we have specialized software. So as Ruslan has mentioned, we're not directly stick to the aircraft itself. We're sitting elsewhere. The fun fact is CAMO engineers usually do not sit physically 99% of the aircraft they are managing. So we are working remotely, but still it's a vital part of the operation and the maintenance. It should be in place.
Again, another interesting aspect. So you don't see 99% of the aircraft that, you do work with. So and right now we're sitting in the hangar, right? One person would expect that your team would be somewhere here in the hangar, but where would you be then? I mean, if not here in the hangar, where could you find a CAMO team?
Technically, CAMO team can work anywhere around the globe. You just need a good computer, specialized software, and of course a good internet connection. FL Technics CAMO, speaking particularly about our case, we're located in Vilnius International Airport. We have an office there.
And Ruslan, for you, how would you describe that from a perspective of working with your clients as well? Because I guess as CAMO, your clients in one aspect would want you, if you're not in the hangar, they would want some form of proximity to you, or, to be able to be close with you, whether you're an in-house CAMO or an outsourced CAMO, and we're going to talk about that as well. But, how is then that relationship, where you're not directly in the hangar, but when you're interacting with clients, what's that like, for you?
With the current means of the communication between the parties, it's definitely not a problem at all to communicate with any airlines, with any companies on all the world. We have the clients in Europe, we have clients in Middle East, and the most far customer is in South America for us, to whom we are working for more than 2 years. And I would say this is one of the most successful projects for us and for the customer. Everyone is happy about the communication, and we see no problems at all in communicating with such customers. So for us, as I said, with the current means of communications, it's not a problem at all too.
I want to come back to the analogy that we set up about the car, right? And it's a bit easier to suggest, what CAMO is, putting it, in the context of a car in terms of the tasks, right? What I want us now to do, or to break down, is what then are the CAMO operations that you do, right? Obviously, you've got the car analogy, but then you've also got the aircraft analogy. 2,000 tasks, that's the, estimate number that you guys brought up. what's the breakdown of tasks and how you guys approach that? Because it's quite a lot. It's a significant number of tasks. How do you approach that? Who wants to take this one?
Well, I can cover this as it's directly related to my activities, my scope of activities. So the question is, from one side it's simple, from the other it's complicated. I could probably break down the CAMO activities into several main topics, starting of course with the maintenance, planning, scheduling, and records management, which is about speaking about these tasks, when and how it should be done. Further, we could highlight, of course, the ADSB management. This is mandatory and optional publications coming both from authorities, OEM, etc. This should be assessed and tracked. Further, we can highlight, of course, the technical support and troubleshooting support. What does this stand for? Actually, it's supporting the maintenance repair organization part 145, providing them with the instructions. Sometimes we meet the cases while, let's say, particular case or defect lays beyond RMM, which stands for Aircraft Maintenance Manual. So in this particular scenario, CAMO comes up and supports the maintenance guys, providing them some extra instructions. And of course, we should mention the ARC, which stands for Airworthiness Review Certificate. So CAMO also supports on that, providing all the necessary records, statuses, and all the vital things which should be done. ARC stands like this, again comparing to the car. On each 2 years you need to pass the technical inspections to make sure your car is, as you have mentioned, very good word, roadworthy. So to make the confirm that the aircraft is airworthy, each year you need to pass the ARC. And for this purpose, CAMO provides their support in terms of necessary records.
From my side, I can add just a simple example. As you can see, the aircraft has really a lot of systems, and it has engines, it has fuselage, it has avionics, it has interior equipment, and so on. So in our setup, for each of this system, we have a separate team or engineer who is looking for it. So for example, of course, engine engineers, he's looking only for engines. Meantime, the fuselage guy, he will check all the structure on repairs and damages on the airplane. Interior things, it's definitely interiors. Avionics, it's different parts. So in that way, we are dividing this activity inside our team.
Another aspect of that as well is that as you are, let's say, in carrying out your CAMO operations, you must follow, or you must be following a certain standardization of or regulatory framework to make sure that the CAMO that you are carrying out, because, as I understand it, you've got, or taking a look at FR Technics, CAMO, right? You are an in-house CAMO team, and we'll speak about that, but you also do a number of outsourcing as well to other clients, which you then bring in. But part of that is just making sure that you're following a certain regulatory framework. How do you follow that? How do you ensure that you're in line with all of that?
Oh, just to be on the same page from the very beginning, I would like to highlight the two main ways how CAMO service could be provided to the customer. So the two main ways is a contract or subcontract. I'll explain the difference. So since you're an airline, the AOC, Air Operator Certificate holder, regulatory-wise, you're obliged to have your own CAMO in-house. Another story is an aircraft owner or a lessor. They do not operate the aircraft. Technically, they're not obliged, regulatory-wise, to have the CAMO in-house, but they're owners, and they want to make sure that the aircraft they own stays in a correct and worthy condition. For that purpose, they also may seek to receive a proper CAMO service, and they want to buy that because they do not have their own. This type of relationship is called contracted CAMO. So FO Technics, as a standalone approved CAMO company, may provide both contracted CAMO service and subcontracted CAMO service for the operators which have their own CAMO.
And the main difference in contract and subcontracted CAMO is a responsibility. So in subcontracted CAMO, when it's provided to the airlines, the airline remains fully responsible for the airworthiness of its own aircraft. In the contract, it's CAMO, when it's provided mainly for the lessors, owners of the aircraft. So the CAMO remains responsible for the airworthiness of this aircraft.
I'm going to take us a little bit on a tangent here, right? Something that we mentioned earlier, which was, CAMO, like CAMO operations, right? Or the general scope of it can carry up to 2,000 tasks, right? And this can be for one aircraft, if I'm not mistaken, yeah? And when you look at, again, now we're talking about the airline, some of the clients that you may have a client or an airline that's coming in with 10 aircraft, right, scheduled for, the 10 aircraft that need to be monitored and make sure that they're following the correct airworthiness, requirements. So if we just put that into numbers, 10 aircraft, that's about 20,000 tasks, right? That's quite a lot, right, to manage on a manual level. Right, that's 20,000 tasks. I'm sure that comes with the various number of documentation that needs to be followed as well. How do you monitor that? How do you make sure that, okay, out of the 2,000 tasks for one aircraft, we followed everything, I guess, sequentially, right, as it needs to be done? How do you manage that? What type of systems or software, if used, do you use for that? Yeah.
It's a very good question. CAMO organizations, they have specialized software to track this, to have the forecast in place, to track the ADs, track the SBs, modifications, everything, even the structural items. So we call it MIS, or Maintenance Information System. In aviation world, there are well-known name of software we're using. It's AMOS, Oasis, and these are main two, actually, which we're working with.
Also, we are using, we called it software from Bill Gates.
Okay.
Microsoft Excel, of course.
Quite interesting. Okay, and that's quite an interesting topic that you just put up
It's
there.
quite old-fashioned, I would say, yeah. But previously we use it, for example, for the aircraft which are on the ground mostly and not operated. But anyway, you need to keep the airworthiness status of the aircraft. And of course, in this case, it's quite convenient tool to perform CAMO tasks.
By the way, it's true, it's very convenient.
It's very good. I mean, so if you're just to expand on that further, we call it the Bill Gates software, right? Microsoft Excel, which it is. How does it make things easier? I mean, like in terms of now tracking, because I guess, yes, everything is now digital, but then there's still an aspect of, okay, everything is digital, but you can have an Excel document, let's just say, take that as an example, with, 2,000 lines or 2,000 or multiple different files. How do you approach managing that, making sure that everything is done and checked? I'm sure maybe there are multiple people who check, a certain section of that Excel document, let's say, or of the systems that you use. How do you approach that?
Yeah, of course, we need to have appropriate team of engineers. Particularly in our team, we have more than 60 engineers for actively tracking all of that. And with new modern softwares, of course, everything is becoming possible. And softwares, they are making a lot of work instead of you, I would say. You just need to properly feed it with the right information on the right time. And it will provide you any maintenance forecast, what you need, to the extent what you need, what you require, in order to be prepared to perform all the maintenance tasks before they become due.
To put it simple, imagine this software as a giant to-do list. So you have the list of things which should be done at a certain moment. It can stand both for flight hours, flight cycles, or like calendar. So this is called forecast. And each aircraft maintenance program, it consists of a big list of the tasks. Each of these tasks has its due date. So the list of these due dates, based on the utilization or calendar, it's called a forecast. So what we're constantly forecasting based on the utilization, based on the calendar, and we're seeing which job when it should be done, and that's how we do it.
So essentially, as I'm getting it here, you've got a giant to-do list from Bill Gates, essentially, right? We could take it that way. Now, on forecasting, right? Forecasting the operations, and I want to segue from that or bring back to, to the topic that at hand. And you raised airlines, when you look at different operators today, you've got various number of airlines, scheduled airlines, passenger airlines, charter airlines. You've got low-cost carriers, you've got legacy carriers, private operators as well. You've got a number of different, types of operators. And I would assume that all these different operators have different CAMO requirements. Is that the case?
Speaking about the requirements, they're more or less standardized for that list. Speaking about Europe, we have EASA on top of us. We have national authorities, of course. So yeah, the standards of, at least for continuing airworthiness, they're more or less same for everyone. So as I have mentioned previously, AOC, Air Operator Certificate, or airline, they must have their own CAMO established. Further, regulatory-wise, they can outsource some tasks to third-party companies. Again, we can discuss why they're doing that later on. So regulatory-wise, it's working like that.
Yeah, just as Victor said, standard, they are more or less the same in all the world, but just there are different approaches and different methods how you are approaching them, depending on each civil aviation authority of each countries. Then in EASA we have like a joint body which is called EASA, European Aviation Safety Agency, which like creates those standards for us. But anyway, there are 27 European Union members plus another 4 countries, which also can deviate slightly from that joint requirements to have sometimes more harder requirements or whatever. So different approaches, different documents, and so on.
Now, 2 aspects that have come up, constantly throughout our conversation today is the fact that there is in-house CAMO as well as outsourced CAMO operations actually there. Let's break it down a little bit here. As an in-house CAMO, as I understand it, you're FR Technics, and you as an in-house CAMO for, or I might be wrong here.
Let me correct you, here. He says in-house CAMO means that operator having their own CAMO and not outsourcing anything. So this is called in-house. That means that the main business is to operate the aircraft to fly people somewhere, but they are obliged to have their own CAMO. This is called in-house. While we have FLT here as a player, he comes as a third party taking a part of these tasks from the operator. This is called subcontracting. Same applies for the lessors, but they do not fly, they just own the aircraft. We also can take all the tasks from them and support them on the CAMO tasks. So in-house is, let's imagine, as a part of operator, part of airline. This is in-house.
So speaking about FL Technics, we're not in-house CAMO. We don't have any internal airline to whom we are providing it. We are providing it only to external customers, airlines, and aircraft owners.
So what would be the benefits there? Because as I understand it, as you've explained, both of you, that an in-house CAMO team is a CAMO team within an airline, organization, and an out-house CAMO is more of an independent, or they don't have an airline within them, but they can outsource or take on some of the additional capacity that maybe an in-house CAMO team might not be able to take on by themselves. So what would you say are the main differences between an in-house CAMO team and an outside, or subcontracting it, as you rightfully said? And why would someone choose to subcontract, right, and not just depend on the in-house CAMO team?
Well, probably we should start with the benefits of having the in-house CAMO. So the first thing which should be mentioned is, of course, the oversight of the processes you have in the continuing airworthiness environment. So while you have everything in-house, you have your pool of engineers, you have overall control and oversight of what they are doing and how they are managing the airworthiness of your aircraft. Further, of course, we could mention the response time, which is sometimes important as well, because if you address all of your questions to a third-party company, it might be that some of them will be delayed because they might be busy with something else. So this probably the main topics which should be mentioned.
Western, how would you add to that?
Yeah, for me, this is like probably would be the main difference. Yeah, when the in-house you have like and everything under your control. But if to say about outsourced CAMO, you can have some benefits which are quite crucial for our understanding. When first of all you can have them access to the pool of engineers, Especially it's quite beneficial for startups airlines when they are having usually small fleets and they cannot afford themselves to have like 5, 6, 8 engineers with different specialities just to perform the CAMO tasks for their fleet. Yeah, because as we mentioned before, you need to have some guys who is responsible for engines, for the structure, for the avionic parts, and for the other aspects. And just to have it for 1-2 aircraft, it's not beneficial at all. And when you also start up airlines, you are also establishing quite a lot of different processes, procedures inside the companies. And just outsourcing CAMO, you can release a bit your headache with the new actions which you need to do. Yeah,
I could totally agree on that, because now CAMO is a business, and each business, especially while starting that, it requires a certain amount of money to be invested. While you're a startup, just having, let's say, 2-4 aircraft, it's quite a big financial burden for yourself to start a CAMO organization. You need to have it, but you can still outsource a couple of your tasks. If you want to have a full in-house, it's a huge investment. You need to invest into people, into their trainings. You need to hire a quite high pool of engineers, which should be in-house. And actually, it's a big financial burden. And the startups, the small airlines, they're trying to avoid that, outsourcing all this continuous airworthiness management tasks.
What I'm picking up now is that for let's say for a startup airline, right, or for an operator that has maybe an in-house team, but it's not so extensive or expensive, that people would resort to outsourcing that to already an established provider, which in one hand I'm picking up there's a lot of cost efficiency, cost savings that's there, and at the same time you get access to a lot of that technical skill, like a pool, a pool of technical skill that you have. So, and where I'm going to with this is that you, as I understand, as FR Technics CAMO, as an outsourcing or a subcontractor, as to use those terms, you must have a pool of engineers that you have globally, because you are everywhere, and on 6 continents, I believe, and you must have that pool of engineers that you can source, or that you can tap into when there's a client that needs CAMO, let's say in Latin America or in Asia Pacific. I mean, talk about that. Is that the case, Rosna?
actually, we have all of our engineers in-house in Vilnius. So as I said, with the current means of communications, we don't need to have them somewhere. Yeah, so all of them are sitting in our central office, in our central facility in Vilnius, and we are performing all the tasks from here. Yeah, sometimes when we need to perform some additional inspection of the aircraft or the documents, we can send somebody to the place of aircraft or records location to perform that, but 99, I could say, % of activities are performed from
both your
side. Yeah.
Okay. Case for you as well, Victor?
Yeah, exactly. I could agree on that. And indeed, we are maintaining quite a big pool of engineers which are well qualified, deeply qualified. Each group, they're covering their narrow specific area of the aircraft they maintain. So another thing which is worth mentioning, I believe, is that the customers, the airlines, they're coming with their specific requirements for the engineers they're buying. For instance, it could be, let's say, a national requirements from UAE, which requires CAMO engineers of subcontracted organization to be trained for specific trainings. We're satisfying that as well. So the team working with this carrier, they are trained on that particular trainings, and they are providing the service, meeting the requirements of the customer.
Also, what I want to add here, that we started to say that CAMO is quite convenient for startup airlines, but it's not only the case, of course. We have really a lot of well-established companies to whom we are providing outsourced CAMO services, and it could be like very different cases here. So some companies, they just really have the outsource policy for the services. They are literally trying to outsource as many services as they could. This is one case. Some companies, for example, I remember when that case, the company came and they said like, we really want to perform CAMO services in-house, but we feel that our engineers are not well trained enough. So we created for them the program with the like transfer of the data into their maintenance information system, plus the training of their engineers. We planned this project for like 2 years, performed it within 2 years, and then it was like a successful project for us when we started this CAMO, in-house CAMO for the operators. Sometimes it could be like big and well-established airline with insisting with a in-house CAMO, but they are introducing, for example, new type of the aircraft, and to be on the safe side, they deciding to outsource only this part of the services. So there could be like really a lot of cases when the companies decide to subcontract the CAMO services, CAMO activities to the organizations like FL Technics is.
That also brings forward, another particular topic, which is, and to give CAMO, the full, holistic scope, a holistic coverage. We've looked at the benefits, but there are also challenges that are there with CAMO, right, or outsourcing it, where you've got, and you mentioned about the training where, okay, do you have enough trained, engineers within your teams? There's also the entrance of experienced younger individuals who are coming into the industry as well and operating across various different regulatory frameworks, geographies, etc. How are you approaching that? Because that's quite complex, right? And it's a complex array of issues that sometimes cannot just be fixed in 1 year. For example, let's look at, young engineers coming into the industry. That's more of an investment that needs to happen over, half a decade into a decade, 2 decades. How are you approaching some of those challenges and dealing with them?
If to speak about young engineers, yeah, of course, we are cooperating with the local institutes in Lithuania. We're trying to keep those young engineers all the time motivated and involved in the process, and of course working closely to the experienced guys who are working in our team. It's like quite a big advantage to them. Like if to compare, for example, with my time when I was graduating from university, now I think there are quite a bigger variety of the different fields where you can go, especially after like technical university. You can go to IT, you can go to like any other industries and so on. And we need actually to fight for the engineers, just to bring them here. So this is quite a challenge at the moment, but our team is keeping the required level of the engineers, and we are ready to satisfy any customer needs from the CAMO perspective.
And how are you attracting talents? You mentioned that, there's some things that you do to attract talent. And I'm going to come back to a very interesting thing that you said, right? This Bill Gates software, right? Someone might hear that and they'll be really interested, say, oh, okay, that's something I want to work with. But, what are some of the, bylines or the, your main points of attraction when you're saying attracting younger talent to come into the industry, or maybe, attracting experienced talent in the industry, for them to stay current and stay within it, sometimes maybe not retire. What are some of those, main attractive points that you give out?
Yeah, I would mention here a few things. First of all, I should mention that within the last years we increased the number of our customers, and I would say the equipment with which we are working. Equipment, I mean the aircraft types, for example. Recently we started to provide the common services for Airbus A220 aircraft, which is one of the latest aircraft in all the aviation world. We are working with softwares, which are like top in the top list of the airlines of the SAIR selection. So coming to our organization, the students and young people, they have an opportunity to start to work with such a like very well developed and established things from the beginning. Yeah, of course, they need to start first of all from like more simple tasks, but they have an opportunity to become really experienced engineers to work with in totally international organization with any type of the customer around the globe, and maybe future to travel somewhere to work also somewhere abroad. So we also providing such an opportunities. So for me, those are like the main attractive points for young engineers.
And I mean, Victor, what would you add to that?
Of course, I believe we should not forget the main thing which actually drives the engineers is the passion for the aviation. It's the first thing actually which make us smile while we're coming to work. And I would notice that we are one of the oldest departments in Technics. By saying oldest, I mean the mid-age of personnel working. So we have a lot of, let's say, well-qualified engineers with the age above even 60, 70. I have the guy in my team, he's working since 1974 in aviation field. So it is more than 10 years before I was born. And he is still now coming to work with a smile. He is happy about what he does.
You know, if you had to sum up the advantages and disadvantages of CAMO, obviously in-house CAMO and outsourced CAMO, subcontract, you would keep coming back to that. You know, how would you package that, you know, to either to someone who's just coming into CAMO, a trainee, university student, or an experienced, you know, technician, maybe from another industry or within aviation? How would you package, you know, the disadvantages and the advantages of each approach, and which model works best for airlines? Victor, let's go with you.
Okay, so probably I'll start with the advantages of subcontracting. So first thing, of course, you are receiving the pool of specific engineers which are ready to support you on your questions and issues on a daily basis, and you constantly having access to them. Further, it's cost efficiency. It's an advantage, especially while you are a startup or a small airline. Then you have a financial advantage because you're buying CAMO services, and there is no need to establish your own CAMO in-house to, let's say, pay a lot of paychecks to the huge team of engineers which will support just 2 or 4 of your aircraft. Further, the quality, which is also worth mentioning, because while you have a subcontracted CAMO, usually it has its own quality system. Meanwhile, the AOC, the operator, have their own. That means that the activities of continuing airworthiness is monitored by 2 quality systems, which again raises the quality of the products which is being developed.
There's also an element of scalability there, because you can, and more on the outsourcing part, where if you decide to approach an outsource, you know, provider or subcontractor, they can scale, or, you know, the level of CAMO can be scaled to the airline's needs. Is that correct? You know, is that appropriate to term it that way?
Yeah, that is correct. And if to answer on your first question, yeah, about the advantages or disadvantages, so definitely each of the way they have its own pros and cons, and you need to see exactly the situation of the airline at the moment. So they can be just literally a lack of resources in the country, yeah, or whatever. If there is in the country no university, no aviation universities at all, or just a few of them, or the labor cost is quite high there. So that could be one case, yeah. And it could be, as I said, a well-established airline, but you know how the airline commercials sometimes work, and they're coming and saying that from tomorrow we're taking new type of the aircraft and so on, and you need to be ready to start its operation like from day D, yeah. And of course, within such period of time, to find engineers who are experienced with this particular type of aircraft is becoming quite difficult sometimes. And of course, that could be the very good option to subcontract the services for this particular type of the aircraft. Or the company is in there restructurizing, yeah, its structure, or joining with other company, or vice versa. It's splitting between for 2-3 companies also could be an option. So there are a lot of cases, I would say. So you need to see particular ones, but as Victor said, yeah, subcontracting CAMO, you are getting the and access to the pool of engineers who are very well qualified, experienced. Moreover, what we need to say, we are working with more than 15 clients on CAMO. So imagine it's minimum 15 audits per year. So we have been audited, I would say, each third week approximately by different civil aviation authorities. So it means that we are checked from the different angles all the time. So it's not that your CAMO is registered in this country and you are just only audited by this authority and so on. So it could be sometimes, but we are being audited all the time.
I guess
like
that's also what you do, because then you also have a regulatory body or regulatory bodies that also, in a way, perform CAMO on you, if I can use that, or check to see that are you also within your framework of operation as you're dealing with your clients as well. It's quite interesting. One topic here now, obviously we've discussed quite a lot about CAMO, be it in-house, outsourcing, right? The different airlines, the different types of airlines, that would use CAMO, advantages, disadvantages. Why would people go for an in-house CAMO? Why would people go for out-house CAMO as well? Looking into the future, right? And also, this is always a topic that you can't avoid. How is tech influencing CAMO? How do you see that happening? Another topic as well as AI, right? It's almost impossible to have an interview and not talk about how AI is influencing, not just aviation, but industries all around the world. Looking into the future, how do you see trends in CAMO forming? What are you preparing for? Where are you putting your time and effort? Victor, let's start with you.
Well, again, based on my personal experience and looking from the perspective of Technics CAMO, I would say that there is a tendency that airlines start to outsource more. So again, of course, we cannot get rid of these digitalization processes which are taking place currently. So what do we have? We have the cloud solutions. All the maintenance information systems are currently in the clouds, making it both conveniently accessible for the AOC and the third-party CAMO, so the users can simply work in parallel. Speaking about the AI, I'm not that confident that it will take part soon or replace the human beings, because as you all know, the aviation is the most conservative area in the world. So we should be careful here, and still humanize sometimes better than the AI. But there is a positive movement on this matter as well. I would like to highlight that there are plenty of aviation software developers trying to integrate the AI solutions into the maintenance planning and scheduling. So the software analyzes the ground times, the ground stops of the aircraft, and tries to calculate whether the maintenance staff will be capable to perform a task during this ground stop or no. So it's on a certain matter, human beings slightly are being already replaced by the AI, but still it's a long way to go because we're very conservative.
And Ruslan, what's your view into the future?
My view, of course, if to speak about AI, I would say that I would see that it will be developed in the way of preventive maintenance mostly, because what we are doing at the moment now, we are mostly working with reactive maintenance, when something happened. But I guess that AI tools could be used in order to analyze the current trends of the aircraft, which may be not tracked even now by the current maintenance programs of the aircraft, just to perform some actions in advance in order to avoid any system failure which could lead to any flight delays or cancellations. So this is,
I guess, is more of an aspect on you said preventative maintenance and predictive maintenance, I guess, as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So all that working together.
This is like from my commercial point. I don't know, maybe Victor from his technical point.
This is true. Actually, there are well-known engine manufacturers actually using these AI tools already. So what they do, there is a thing called ECM, or engine condition monitoring. Technically, it's a software allowing you to see the parameters of the engine, how it behaves, how it feels, is it healthy enough, is it, you can estimate time on wing for the engine. And this predictive maintenance using the help of AI, it constantly live analyzes all the parameters being transmitted to these company servers. And in case the software and the AI see that something goes wrong, it instantly notifies the CAMO personnel that, okay, I saw this already, it's a generic issue and it might be that, let's say, this or that went wrong. And this is already saving plenty of money to the operators, because engine repair is, I would say, the most costly part of maintenance. So it's already saving money and it's working, indeed.
But definitely in aviation is, I would say, quite really slowly changing industry, I would say. And still there are a lot of airlines which are using quite old-fashioned methods for example, calculating all flight hours, and flight cycles. Just pilots writing down by the pen in the aircraft logbook how many hours and cycles, I remember when some newcomers were coming, and for them was quite obvious question. So why there need not installed any like speedometers in the cockpit, which will be calculating this? And the problem is that in aviation is very regulated area, and for any action you need some kind of proof. And for the moment, those proof are usually some kind of paper. So for any component installed, for any, as I said, flight hours, flight cycles measured, you need to have some proof. And this proof is usually like a piece of paper, and sometimes to avoid it is quite difficult. So not all the time you can use those AI tools in order to simplify that.
And I guess, another aspect to that, aviation just being conservative as it is also a way to maintain safety. Because I guess, one of the pillars of the industry, whether it's against maintenance, ground handling, aircraft operations, aircraft maintenance, whichever aspect of it, safety is, the common denominator, or the common focus across all the industries, right? The safety of operations of, the aircraft themselves, the people who are working around them, and most importantly, the passengers who are flying in them, making sure that they're safe. Again, we're coming to that analogy that if you're going to be driving your car every single day, or you're going to take a bus to work every day, you want to know and you want to be rest assured that you're safe, right? Which is the most common, or the most, it's something that people don't even think about, but it's just something you expect from an organization. Now, coming to, one of our conclusion points here, what do you hope to communicate as FR Technics CAMO to the market, right? Going into the future, from today going into the future, what are you hoping to communicate? Because there's always a message that you want to broadcast out to the people that you work with, potential customers, previous customers as well, people that might join you, trainees, university students, experienced engineers. What is your message to the market today? Ruslan?
If you want to join your fleet to currently 120 plus aircrafts of FL Technics CAMO, so we always welcome wherever you are. We will do our best to keep your fleet on the highest airworthiness standards, points, and so on.
Again, backed by your history as a global provider as well, and being a part of the FR Technics group. Victor, your final closing statement there?
Well, since Ruslan is more customer related, I'll probably say a word to the future engineers who are still thinking and intending to join us. So if you have a passion to these big flying metal birds, don't get rid of that. You should always try, and trust me, once you try it, once you join the team, doesn't matter whether it's part 145, part CAMO, you cannot get rid of that. You're gonna spend your whole life, and it's really challenging, interesting, and surprisingly, I find myself each day coming to the work with a smile. So that's what we do.
We just want to say to any airline who really requires any support with the CAMO tasks to be performed, if you want to join our existing customers with 120 plus aircraft, we always welcome you on board wherever you are, whatever type of aircraft you're operating, whatever type of operations you're performing. We will do our best to assure the highest CAMO standards for your fleet.
Now, one of the biggest questions that I have today, obviously, the culmination of everything we've been speaking about, the analogies, what CAMO is, where you can find CAMO, what you do, airworthiness. What's harder, CAMO for a car or an aircraft?
Your perception, yeah?
I would say that's, I wouldn't name that it's hard, but of course, aviation is very regulated area of transport. It's the most regulated, I would say. So here we need to be very, we need to keep the thing safe. That's what CAMO does, and that's what we do actually, the safety first. So it's more complicated for aircraft, of course.
Now, Ruslan,
Yeah, of course, fully agree with Victor. It's more complex, more complicated area, industry, but more interesting.
on that point, I'm not too sure if the roadworthy camo industry is for cars. I'm not too sure if they have a Bill Gates system themselves. So I guess that's an interesting point for you guys.
Yeah.
Victor, Ruslan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and of course talking about camo and the exciting aspects of what you do.
Thank you for having us.